All right, I think it's about that time. So, hi everyone. My name is Milian. I am the Vice President and Dean of Admission and Financial Aid here at Reed College, and you are in our faculty spotlight. So, this is one of the events that we love to have early on in the application process. And I can just see by looking at the names, we have a good number of admitted students here. Some of you have gotten either the package or you get the email. So, congratulations. It's great to have you join us.
Yes.
Great for you to be here. Hey, Matt, it's good to see you too. And
Hello.
so we are just saying hi to everyone and greeting folks as they are coming in. So it's
All right.
to
I'm
have
going
you.
to turn some more lights on in my office so I'm not in shadow.
Okay, love that. So, how does this work today? So, usually I say everyone turn on your camera and it's really interactive. This is interactive, but in a different way. So at the bottom, you're going to see a Q&A button. And while you can certainly chat out to the panelist, if you have questions, use that Q&A feature. And what that will do is send me a note and let me know what you'd like to ask our panelist, and I will ask it of them. And what I'm going to do is wait till a few come in because oftentimes some of the questions are similar. We're going to ask them all at once. But if you've joined us for any other faculty spotlights, you know that we talk about Read, we talk about the academic program, but we also talk about other stuff that has nothing to do with Read at all. And our goal is for you just to get to know some of the folks who are going to be teaching you in the classroom. So I'm thrilled you're all here. I see most of our attendees are here. And so I'm going to have our faculty guests introduce themselves. And I am going to go in alphabetical order by first name. And so, Kara, why don't you let us know who you are? Let us know let us know what department you teach in, and in particular, what your emphasis is within the department.
Great. So I'm Kara Cerveny. I am a cell and developmental biologist. I'm in the biology department, and largely my lab is interested in understanding how cells in the developing visual system turn into all the different cell types that help eyes and brains work to perceive the world in a sort of visual way. We do that in zebrafish, so that's what my lab work is on, and I do that with all the different students in my classes, but also my thesis students. That's also upper level classes, and then the focus of my classes is really in that sort of cell and developmental area. So molecular biology, cell biology, we use a lot of microscopes to do things. I teach across all levels of the curriculum. So I'm teaching in our introductory biology class right now, and I teach a upper level seminar in neurodevelopment, and then I teach a developmental biology class. I also am part of the neuroscience program.
Thank you. And how about you, Chris?
You're muted, Chris.
Ooh.
My gosh, what a old school, oldster thing to do. I was trying to be polite and not interrupt my colleagues. So I'm Kris Anderson. I'm a psychologist. I'm a clinical psychologist by training, and my research is in developmental psychopathology. So my particular area of interest is the use of alcohol and cannabis and the development of those type of behaviors and disorders, generally from around age 10 to age 25. My current grant actually looks at decision making in social contexts around the use of alcohol and studying gender differences. So cis men, cis women, gender diverse people, and see how social context influences decision making. So in fact, I make a lot of party simulations, so it's kind of fun. In terms of teaching, I teach in the introductory series courses. I teach statistics. I teach my course in psychopathology. I also teach courses in psychology of addictions and clinical psychology. So really across the different areas of the curriculum, and I've been here 18 years, so there's a lot of things that I know about this department. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you. How about you, Matt?
Hi, my name is Matt Pearson. I teach in the linguistics department at Reed. I'm one of three faculty in the linguistics department. We're one of the few small liberal arts colleges in the country that has a linguistics department and a linguistics major, so I'm proud to be a part of that. I am a syntactician, which means that the area of study that I focus on in linguistics is sentence structure, thinking about what sorts of rules or principles speakers of a language have inside their head that allows them to put words together to form larger units like sentences. I'm looking both at the structure of sentences in particular languages and also thinking about universal properties of sentence structure that hold across languages. My particular research is on languages from a family of languages called the Austronesian family. And these are languages that are spoken in places like Indonesia, the Philippines, Polynesia, Micronesia, New Zealand, places like that, Malaysia. The language that I work on is called Malagasy, which actually is spoken on the island of Madagascar off the west coast of Africa, so a little bit separated geographically from the rest of the Austronesian family. And in terms of what I teach in the department, so we have an introductory course called Introduction to Linguistic Analysis that covers sort of all of the different areas of grammatical structure in language, from sounds all the way up to sentences and meanings. And I co-teach that course every year with one of my colleagues. I also teach introductory and advanced courses on syntax. And I teach a course with the a rather intimidating title, Morphosyntactic Typology, which basically talks about the grammars of the world's languages and sort of how they differ, universal properties of human language. And I also teach our semantics course, which deals with the study of meaning.
Wow. That's not light stuff, Matt. But Matt, I recently heard of a really cool project, and I think this was a class that you led, a student who arrived into one of your classes and spoke their native language that no one knew, and students had to basically figure it out. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is a class that we offer regularly as part of our curriculum. It's sort of it's an upper division class that linguistics students can take, majors and non-majors if they've had the right introductory courses. It's called Field Methods. It's basically a lab course that we offer that gives students a kind of hands-on opportunity to do what is called elicitation, which is a style of data gathering that we use quite frequently in linguistics, where the linguist basically sits down across the table with someone who is a native speaker, someone who grew up speaking a language that the linguist wants to know something about, and you interview the native speaker to gather data, which you then analyze. So the Field Methods class is a class where students have the opportunity to do that kind of hands-on work. And we normally have as our language consultant, our speaker in the class, a Reed student who speaks a language that maybe nobody in the class knows anything about. The last time that I taught that class, we worked on a language called Oromo, which is one of the major languages of Ethiopia. There's about a dozen different languages that are spoken in the country of Ethiopia, and Oromo is one of the major ones. And we have a Reed student on campus who's from Ethiopia and is a native speaker of Oromo, and we hired her to be the language consultant for this class. So we had about 6 students and me sitting around the table with our Oromo speaker, trying to figure out the sounds of the language and how we transcribe those sounds and what the rules were for putting the sounds together, and then looking at word structure and sentence structure in the language. Students would take turns interviewing the native speaker and presenting their research in class. And so we ended the course by having a little sort of mini conference where each of the students presented a research project that they had worked on with the Oromo speaker, sort of explaining different properties of the language that we had uncovered. So it's a very kind of cool hands-on way of studying how linguists do their work.
So very cool. Did they figure it out? Did y'all figure it out?
Languages are bottomless wells, so
Okay.
you never figure out everything. But it's, I mean, and all languages are really cool to look at. We found some really interesting things in the language that we weren't expecting to find.
Mm.
So it was a very rewarding experience, and rewarding, I think, for the Oromo student as well. It's although she was being paid to be there, she was employed by the department as the language consultant for the class. I think she got a lot out of it as well, sort of having the novel experience of having all of these strangers be interested in her language and wanting to figure out, why do you say it that way? And why do you not say it with the words in this other order? And she would often respond, well, hey, it's weird. I never really thought about this. I never thought that my language had all of these different properties to it. So yeah, that kind of makes it fun as well.
It's great. She's a student worker in my office, and she loved it. And so, Kara, Kris, why don't y'all do anything cool like that in your classes?
Oh, we do cool stuff. It's just different cool.
Tell me
Yeah, I
about
was
the
gonna
cool
say
stuff that
there's
you.
no one department. No one department has a sort of corner on the market of cool stuff. Yeah.
And that was sort of my indirect poking point. Can you either of you talk about a way that you make the learning active with your students, the way that they're really getting into it, rather than sort of this passive transfer of information in each of your respective areas?
Whoever wants to go first, Kara, I don't care.
Okay. I mean, I can go, and then you can chime in. I think that in classes, I think one of the things that we do, especially in the biology department, is we integrate research experiences in the classes. And so, for instance, in my developmental biology class this past semester, we were the first sort of 5 weeks or so, students are learning some basic techniques in the lab. So one of the things that we use in the lab is a technique called microinjection. So if anyone has ever seen like in vitro fertilization, it's the same kind of technique, but we use it on zebrafish embryos to manipulate genetics. And so one of the things that we were doing was performing CRISPR-Cas9 gene disruption. So this is something that is big in the news right now. There's some really exciting clinical developments in the use of CRISPR-Cas9 for genetic therapies for diseases that are inherited. And so we're really interested in looking at a cohort of genes that we've identified. Some work that I did with a student over the summer and with another thesis student in the previous year. We made a big list of genes through some computational approaches that I won't go into great detail about how we got this list of genes, but we were really interested in being able to disrupt these different genes and see what sort of phenotypes arose in the zebrafish. A lot of people will ask, well, why do you use zebrafish instead of some other organism like a mouse or a fruit fly or a cricket or a plant? And the reason we use zebrafish is twofold. One is that they have a lot more genetic similarity to humans than you might imagine. They're about 75% similarity. So if I look for a gene in the zebrafish, it's likely that it's in the human. And the thing that's great for us as developmental biologists is we can study the really early developmental events that are inaccessible in mammals. So mammals, most mammals have placental development, which means they're inside of the egg develops inside of the mother. And so zebrafish and most other fishes will lay their eggs, not all fish, but most fish will lay their eggs outside and they develop. And so we can watch that process. And then the other thing that's related to that is that these embryos are completely transparent. So we can label them with different dyes or fluorescent proteins and particular structures and observe how the eyes or the brain or the heart, the tail, the fins, whatever you want, develop over time. And we can do a lot of cool microscopy. So these sound like really advanced things, and they are. And the students are doing all of these things. They're choosing a gene, a process that they're interested in, and then for the last 2/3 of the semester, really going to town. And we that course culminates in sort of a symposium where students present their work to each other and ask questions of each other. And it's kind of like going to like a mini research conference.
That's great. I wish I could take courses. I don't have time to go to biology and linguistics, but I want to take you guys' courses. They sound fun. Um, in psychology, I think we have very similar model to biology. Teaching is hands-on from the very first semester. Students are collecting data, they're learning how to program experiments, they're analyzing data. So people start doing statistics in their very first semester. But I would say across the curriculum, we have a lot of these hands-on experiences. Many of our courses are laboratory-based courses. So students may be working with animals from our animal colony, either in, behavioral neuroscience courses where they may actually be doing stereotaxic surgeries or, testing questions in comparative psychology between human behavior and rat behavior. In my area, my advanced course, my students actually work in field work. So they work part of their week instead of being in class. They're actually working in human service agencies in Portland. And we meet together as a class to talk about the academic work that's going on, understanding why different strategies are used, either in intervention or community mental health or in prevention. And then kind of comparing and contrasting what we're reading in the classroom and the realities of being on the ground and working with people who are kind of facing a lot of challenges in their life. But I think all of the faculty in our department have these a real dedication to the hands-on aspects of learning science and practice. And we have a range of basic scientists as well as applied scientists. So sometimes that means you're sitting down the hall in a lab and you've got a pipette in your hand, and other times it means you're in the community, working in educational psychology projects or clinical or psychopathology. So I think very similarly, kind of we want people to get hands dirty with science right away, because that's the fun part, quite frankly, in my opinion. So.
It's sort of interesting. I have two students just hearing you talk about this, I think set off a few lights in their heads. Um, um, One student just sort of talked about one of the projects that they've worked on between the intersection of physics and computer science using, machine learning to detect chronic kidney disease. And they're both curious about interdisciplinary projects, how you collaborate across departments. Someone in particular who said they were so excited about this panel because each of you are in their fields of interest. They want to know how the brain works when it comes to formulation of thoughts and how those thoughts translate into language and linguistics. So, can you all talk about either how your fields connect or how we do interdisciplinary work for students who are just curious about intersections between your fields?
I mean,
And feel free to use examples too if you have them.
Sure. I mean, I can say that in some ways, I feel like psychology connects biology and linguistics in this space with the three faculty who are here. Obviously, we are part with the biology department. We share responsibility for our neuroscience majors. So I think that's the kind of easiest, most tangible way to see how our two fields intersect as we understand, brain and biological bases of behavior. Um, but I think there's also a lot of cross-pollination across biology and psychology that aren't even kind of in the formality of that particular major. And it's not always the ways that you may think. You may say, well, logically, it's this faculty member and that faculty member. But ironically, as the clinical psychologist in my area in addiction, I often overlap a lot with the behavioral neuroscientists in my areas of inquiry. We also have a lot of interest in cognitive science in our department. So Kevin Holmes, who is our cognitive psychologist, is very interested in language. So he overlaps quite a bit with the linguistics department and trying to understand, for his particular interest, how does language frame thought? What is that relation between language and thought and decision making? So, we can have things that are less formal in terms of, student interests and projects across classes. We have more formal things like interdisciplinary majors where students are, proposing, curricular overlap between multiple departments and then looking to try to do an interdisciplinary thesis. We often have majors and minors that overlap. Not all majors have a minor, but that is certainly something where people can do cross-disciplinary work. And in psychology, we have what we call an allied field. So in addition to your study of psychology, you're required to have a programmatic area of study. And in fact, both linguistics and biology have allied fields that overlap with our major. So, but I'll turn it over to my colleagues to see their perspective. But I think we're sort of the circle that helps these Venn diagrams overlap.
Yeah, I mean, for linguistics, so linguistics is one of these fields where what makes you a linguist is that you're interested in studying human language from a scientific perspective. So we're unified as a field by the thing that we're interested in, our topic of our subject of investigation, and not so much unified by our methodology. There are a lot of different ways in which you can do linguistics. And a lot of fields in general and disciplines offered at Reed that really intersect with linguistics in different ways. As Kris said, we have an allied field requirement in our department as well. It's a little bit like a minor, but sort of a minor light, where students are required to pick a discipline outside of linguistics and complete a minimum of 4 courses in that discipline. And the only restriction we put on it is that it has to be related in some way to the study of human language. But when you think about it, that basically encompasses almost every discipline that we have at Reed. Maybe not chemistry, but we've had students who've done psychology, of course, as an allied field, biology as an allied field, um, uh, um, history, social science majors, the foreign languages, literature, English, and even the arts departments. We've had students who've made a case that theater or dance or art history interface with the study of human language in important ways. And we've allowed students to pursue those areas as part of their allied field requirements. So we really have the major set up in a kind of interdisciplinary way. We don't really allow or encourage students to do interdisciplinary thesis projects, just because it's rather difficult to advise those projects. But it's sort of hard to escape the field.
Matt, what is thesis?
So every Reed student during their senior year completes a year-long research project in collaboration with a faculty member. Usually it's one-on-one collaboration with a faculty advisor, where you meet with that advisor maybe once a week for an hour. Depending on the thesis project, you might meet one-on-one with your advisor, or you might meet in a small lab setting with your advisor if there are several students working on related projects together. And together with your faculty member, you develop an original research project and write a paper about it, a research paper about it. And it's a year-long course that you take as part of your graduate requirements for Reed. And every student completes a thesis in their major. That's essentially what a thesis involves. Kris mentioned there are a number of interdisciplinary majors that Reed offers, including things like neuroscience or biochemistry or things of that sort. Linguistics, for kind of bureaucratic reasons, doesn't have any of these interdisciplinary setups, but we try and be flexible in terms of like I said, the kinds of allied fields that our students pursue. And many of our students complete minors in other fields. So instead of just doing an allied field, they might take a couple additional courses and end up with a minor in that particular discipline. And a lot of our majors are very interested in doing that. We also offer a minor in linguistics. So students who have maybe their primary passion is psychology or biology or computer science or what have you, but they also have a secondary strong interest in human language and really want to delve deeply into our courses as well. They can do that by completing a minor in linguistics in addition to a major in their other subject. And our minor requirements are quite flexible, so we try our best to encourage non-majors to take our courses. So those are a couple ways in which we sort of situate ourselves kind of interdisciplinarily.
Mhm. And just to make clear, an interdisciplinary major is a major that pulls from different programs,
Yeah.
right? So neuroscience, for example, from psychology and biology for one a student to have one major.
Right.
And Kara,
Exactly.
did
Yeah,
you have more?
sorry, I was going to talk about neuroscience and biochemistry a little bit. So I kind of sit in this space where I have students who are biology students, who are working in my lab as thesis students or who are in my classes. I also have neuroscience students and I also have biochemistry students. And that kind of work, all of that work can happen in my lab. And so I kind of feel like I just provide a context and whatever angle students are coming from, that we are figuring that out together. Um, and so I wanted to talk about a project, though, that is a little bit kind of outside of those defined majors, which are, sort of neuroscience and biochemistry, where the structure of the major is defined for you and the, sort of coursework is defined. And then you do a thesis either in a biology lab or a chemistry lab or in a biology lab or a psychology lab that has sort of that either neuroscience or biochemistry flavor to it. But the project I want to talk about is a collaboration that I started as part of a grant project that really marries biology and sort of image analysis, a lot of the microscopy images that we collect, with computer science and statistics. And so this kind of goes back to your question earlier, Miljan, about sort of interdisciplinarity and looking for ways in which, at the sort of research level question, where I have a biological question about how a particular gene that encourages cells to turn into neurons, how it gets expressed, and it makes this pattern. That's why I'm doing this with my hands. So in the eyes, it kind of goes around. And we've been very fascinated by sort of the molecular and cell biological mechanisms behind that pattern and the gene getting turned on. And at some point I said, there must be a mathematical way to describe this that can help us even dig deeper into this. And so last year, so in 2023-24 school year, one of the statistics professors and I co-taught a course. I mean, he really taught the course, but I kind of was a consultant, and came in and talked about the biology and sort of presented the images and explained to these statisticians and computer scientists that really an image is not just an image, but it's a matrix of numbers. And as soon as I said that, they got super excited about analyzing the data. Before that, they were like, why are we looking at pictures? And I said, well, you're actually looking at a matrix of numbers. And then they went to town with it. And so we have a really cool collaboration. We shared a thesis student who did some tremendous work, and we're trying to figure out now how to write that up and publish it, because it's really something that, it could only have happened here. I feel like it could only have happened where just across from, just one building over, I can go over and talk to Lenny. He can come over and talk to me. And then we say, hey, this is something students could work on. And then a student who was in that class got super excited and said, that's what I want to do my thesis on. And so then spent the year and really just ran with it. And it was something that we were both excited about, but that the student really was driving. And I think that's one thing that I would emphasize here, is that I think all of us have research programs that students can join and learn. But then there are these students who come and say, I want to learn what you do and add this other dimension to it. And that's really where it's kind of like we learn together and become colleagues instead of professor and student. And that's one of the things that I really love.
And Kara, I think you answered a couple of questions here, which is, do biology class follow active research? The answer is yes. Is it tailored for the class? Yes. Is it tailored for the student? Yes. and the other part about, curiosity about if students conduct independent research. Yes. Do we guide students through the process? Yes. And I think one of the things that if one or two of you could just answer this briefly, some students we say faculty work closely with students. They hear small classroom sizes everywhere, at these small private liberal arts schools. You all have a relationship where people are calling you by your first name, and you all are doing to help them figure out how they get engaged. So, two questions. What does calling a professor by their first name do for us? And just really quickly, just name, oh, these are the two, three, four ways that I help a student find out how they take study within this department further.
Um, I mean, I can jump in here. I mean, I do think Kara used the term kind of collegial, like working with students as colleagues. And I think one of the barriers can be that Dr. Anderson, that idea of hierarchy. I mean, obviously there's hierarchy, but we work with our students as kind of joining us on an intellectual journey. And so much of my work over the years, I mean, I came here from a medical center where I would never have imagined collaborative research with an undergraduate, and then I came here and in fact, one of my first thesis students had asked a very simple question that I had never asked because I had worked for years with people who studied my same field in the same way. It ended up kicking off 10 years of research in my lab because it was a great question that hadn't been examined in the literature. So I really do feel like there's this cross-pollination of ideas that come from my students. Unfortunately, I don't have a movable camera, but I think I'm in the 70s at this point of thesis students over my years at Reed, and I have their photographs are up in my office. I've kept
Oh,
them from year to year, and I'm starting to put up the picture of my lab grandbabies, of the children of my former students. And I know that may not mean a lot to you guys now, but the sheer idea that you'd make a lifelong connection with a faculty member, I think that's common in graduate programs or as a postdoc. But the level of connection that we have with our students, I really do think is special. And it starts from your first, your freshman advisee. They're coming to our department. You're just getting on campus. We're talking to you about your educational program, and that develops through multiple courses and becoming your thesis student. But I do think that's something that makes Reed unique. And yeah, I'll defer to see what else my colleagues have to add to that.
Yeah, that was a very good answer. I'm not sure how I can follow up on that. I mean, I agree that students calling their professors by their first name, and the point of that is to set a tone where we are not leading the student to a particular answer, but we're walking down the path together to find an answer. Um, I talked earlier about the field methods class. This is a situation where the students learn quickly that we have to be colleagues in this investigation because they don't know anything about the language that we're working on together, and I don't know anything about the language either. Um, and so anything that we discover about this language is going to be the result of a collaboration between the faculty and the students. I can't show them how this language works because I don't know how it works. So I think having students call their professors by their first name is sort of modeling the idea of um, treating yourself not as a student but as a scholar who's working in collaboration with some more experienced scholar, but someone who uh, you know doesn't know the answers for the particular question that you're investigating any more than you do.
that's wonderful. I'm going to answer This question, and then I've got another question for faculty. Someone's curious what DEI looks like at Reed after government policy changes. Great question. Some of you may or may not know this. So there's currently an injunction on the implementation of DEI executive orders nationwide, and so there are no mandates currently. And so I know that folks are hanging those in different sectors and different industries. So really nothing to speak about there right now. But certainly a question that we expect that families will continue to ask us. And what we're focusing on is really good communication to our campus on how policies will impact them and their lives here at Reed. Our campus community has a committee that focuses on campus climate and community. And they send out messages to campus whenever there are issues outside of our borders that folks are curious about and they want to hear about. And their job is to, as a multi constituency group, so there's students, there's faculty, there's administrators, there's staff on this group. Their goal is to help folks help the campus represent the different identities we have on campus and to make sure that we're helping folks make sense of things that are going on in the world. And so that is an active part of what we do in this community is make sure that we have a lot of conversations and people know how we'll need to respond if we need to respond. One question I've asked this of all of our faculty. It's probably one of the more challenging questions, and so I apologize in advance because I didn't warn you. What's your favorite place to eat? Your restaurant suggestion for our guests. A lot of folks are coming into town. What one place would you send them? And for those who don't know, the reason this is so hard is because the Portland food is excellent. It's really, really good. And so this has been the hardest question for anyone to answer so far in this past month.
Well, I
Or
can
maybe it's easy for
answer.
you.
Yeah, I will say I can answer for the people who have like difficult diets, but mestizo on division is great if you can't eat gluten and if you're a vegetarian or vegan. They also have meat, so you can actually feed your meat eaters and eat what you want. But yeah, it's Latin food that's really, really good. And it's also not ridiculously expensive. So I like it.
No, I've never been there. Mestizo on
Oh yeah,
Division.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I'll take you.
good one.
Okay. The heads are nodding.
I'll shout out two places on Southeast Belmont Avenue, just north of campus, about 3 miles north of campus, that are in my neighborhood. One is called Bluto's, which is a Greek themed restaurant. They have really good both meat and vegetarian souvlaki and really good hummus and amazing salads and soft serve ice cream for some random reason. And the second place I'll shout out is down the street from there called Mirisata, which is a vegan Sri Lankan restaurant. It's the only Sri Lankan restaurant I've ever been to. I didn't even know what Sri Lankan food really was until I went to this place. It's apart from having really good food, it's noteworthy in that it is an employee-owned collective. So it's a so the people who serve you the food, they also run the restaurant. There are former Reed students who have worked at Mirisata and been sort of co-owners of the restaurant. They've now moved on to do other things, but there is a bit of a Reed connection there, which is kind of cool. Yeah, and the food is just really good. Heavy and greasy, but very tasty.
Cool. I will keep it very close to campus because my lab has a tradition of always going for lab lunch each semester and then during the summer. And I always give students, I say we're going to walk, so it has to be somewhere within like a mile radius of campus. And I give them a wide range of options, and it never fails that they choose Buy Mint Thai, which is just like right up the street on Woodstock. it's really good food. The people are really friendly. We went there for our lab celebration in December, and I think the owners know me now because I call and I say I need a table for like 8 people or 10 people, and they're like, "Oh, is this Kara?" Because it comes up as Reed College, of course. So yeah, so I would say it's really good. They also give a Reed discount, so students like to go there because if you go and the portions are large, and you also get a discount for being from Reed. So they kind of it's a self populating loop, I guess, is
I
the name there, where people go and if they spread the news and people keep going.
I was not aware of the Reed discount. I've seen a lot of Reed people there, but I've always paid full price on that. That's going to change. So we are on the last portion of our session, and I'm going to ask, let's see, where was that question? Danielle Nguyen has a question for you, Kara, and I'm wondering if you can type the answer and share it to all of our guests.
Sure.
It is actually, let's see.
Well, I can just say right now that I'm just reading the question and it's about like favorite things and everything. I see a couple, I just looked at this list of favorite things and favorite labs or favorite ideas or things. And so maybe if that's something that we want to talk about, we can do that.
Well, I think you shared a little bit about that. Maybe it was the last question by Allison,
Okay.
which was, and this is either biology or psychology, labs and museums, intern, if you intern with projects, what does that look like? So a student wants to work with an outside organization. What is the process by which they might do that? Do we collaborate? Is that part of class? Is that an independent project? So that is a question. I'll answer this. Is there any federal funding for research, anything that will happen in the future? Right now, nothing has been impacted here at Reed. We know that Reed is one in the top 5 for national liberal arts colleges that does research. We just recently received a research designation from the Carnegie classification, one of 29 liberal arts schools, because we dedicate about $5.5 million to research. And this is something that works out in your favor. This is something that I think you all can take advantage of. This also, um, is it possible for AP credit to place out of Bio 101, 102? It's not. But if you're interested in AP and IB credit and how it transfers, if you go to our website and type AP chart, it brings up a chart of AP and IB credit and what courses take those. Um, and Kris, question for you. Do you believe that genetic factors, do you believe, how significant do you believe genetic factors are in the development of addiction compared to environmental and psychological influences? I'll just give you a couple minutes to answer that question, but I think,
Yeah, it's not been
that's been out there for a while.
Yeah, I have to say that, addictive behaviors are very complex, like most human behaviors. I mean, certainly there has been, for many decades, the search for the addiction gene, and there has been no evidence of a single gene that's associated with it. However, there are a number of different genetic factors that can increase potential risk, but as always, it's an interaction of genes, the environment, a variety of different levels of analysis when we talk about, addictive behaviors. And it's always important to understand, I think one of the reasons that these questions are often asked is, is it deterministic, right? And it's always important, and I will leave it to the geneticist to give a better answer here, but, these are probabilistic, right? It's the idea that we have, we can have a different range of probabilities that are associated with these behaviors from a genetic standpoint. But there's a lot of that variance that is accounted for by the environment and the interaction of genes in the environment. So I think the really interesting questions right now are in that intersection. Can we understand where we have the intersection of genes and a variety of other biological mechanisms as they interact with yeah, our lives and not just as groups, but as individuals. So kind of looking at different pathways. So yeah, a lot of my work has to do with where do we see people um, kind of move in and out of addictive behaviors? How do we understand what developmental phenomena are involved? So it's a highly complex question, but
Mhm.
um, I say it's really one of those fields that brings scientists from really every discipline to understand these phenomena. So, Kara,
Mhm.
did I mutilate the genetic information there, friend?
No, no, I think you're exactly right. I think that many people, even within the genetics community and in the biology world, I mean, Mendelian genetics of one gene for one trait is very rare, honestly. Like I think that's the easy stuff to study. And I think the interesting things are where you have multiple genes or different alleles of different genes that can differently impact how cells behave. I talk about cell behavior, and then my animal behavior colleague is like, "Wait, what are they doing? Why are they behaving?" And I'm like, "No, no, not like behaving, but behaving." Um, and then also sort of thinking about environmental influences, we think about sort of at a cellular level, there's so many like local environmental influences that can happen, sort of like hormones that can change. We can have different stress
Mhm.
levels that can impact hormones that can change how cells behave. And then going from there, yeah, it's just complicated. And then environmental influences, really, it's difficult to understand sort of mechanistically how they all interact. Maybe AI will figure it all out with us.
Yeah. And Matt, you're doing exactly what I was hoping you would. You're answering that question. We have a question about linguistics department. How do courses change from semester to semester? You'll see also in the chat, I shared our catalog page from the linguistics department. That gives you an idea of what courses are offered this year. But thanks, Matt. I know you'll answer live. One final question, and we're over 1 minute, but I just want to put a nice closing to this. Um, I think this question was asked early on. Breakthroughs happen all the time, new knowledge is gathered by both faculty and students. We discover things. Can a couple of you share one of the new discoveries that's been made by one of your colleagues? It doesn't have to be in your department, or a finding that you found particularly interesting, an expert in their field, and things they talk about. And these are conversations only they're having because it's such unique knowledge. And because we're at time, I'm going to give you all half a minute to respond. So it won't do it justice, but I want to give people a really good feel.
Well, I can just be really fast because Adrian Beltz from the University of Michigan is on campus right now, has spent 2 days visiting with faculty and students who studies neuroendocrinology, and the interesting patterns that are now found looking when people take different types of contraception and how that affects both cognition and behavior. So Adrian
Mhm.
Beltz's work, I would check that out.
How about one of your colleagues here at Reed?
Oh, one of my colleagues here at Reed. Oh, I thought, well, they're on the campus right now. Does that count?
I was not clear.
Yeah, you weren't clear. I would say Michael Pitts has been doing some really interesting work in cognitive neuroscience on consciousness, and has really been kind of the lead on a multi-site study of getting people who are in opposition theoretically to actually test their hypotheses across a variety of labs. Some of you may have seen this on the news because somebody just had to give somebody else a bottle of wine because they lost. So yeah.
I love academic competition. Matt, Kara?
I hate to toot my own horn. I'm far from at the cutting edge of anything, but I've been working on a phenomenon in Malagasy, my major language of study, that seems to be unique among the languages of the world, a particular grammatical construction that doesn't seem to occur in any other language that I've been able to find. Where I mean, I'll just give you the 10-second version. So. Um, Prepositions in Malagasy, so little words that mean things like with or of or for, um, take different forms depending on whether the sentence they appear in is present tense or past tense. And this is very rare for languages to do this. Only a couple other languages do it. And there are situations where you get a mismatch between how the tense is marked on the preposition and how the tense is marked on the verb. And it has interesting consequences for the meanings of sentences. And I'm trying to work all of this out.
And your best local expert on this feature of the language was who? I heard Matt present about this the other day. Someone in a restaurant who was your local
Oh
expert.
yes, a waiter at a restaurant in Antananarivo, the capital of Madagascar, gave me some excellent data on this. So, but I mean, this is stuff that every Malagasy speaker knows. They just don't know that they know it.
Mhm. Matt said he would often go to dinner and say, "Okay, what about this? What about this?" And they would think about it and respond really thoughtfully. I thought that was great. How about you, Kara?
And it's so hard to choose one colleague. I feel like it's really, really challenging. I will give a shout out to actually one of my colleagues who is a computer scientist and a biologist, Anna Ritz, who is doing some really interesting work looking at, she uses, it's called graph theory to understand how cells communicate with each other. And we just wrote a grant together to hopefully be able to use a similar approach to understand image analysis and to build some new programs for image analysis. So I think the same problem that people have had with large data sets, this is one thing that I'm really interested in, and I think we're just awash in data. And how do we deal with data? How do we think about data? And the genomics field kind of dealt with this problem or is dealing with this problem in a variety of ways. And that was always synonymous with big data. And I think in the past probably 5 years, image data has become kind of the new big data horizon. And so I'm really excited to see where that takes us.
That is amazing. I appreciate you all coming here and sharing your experiences here at Reed. And people are still talking about the restaurants, and so I appreciate your suggestions. I saw a lot of questions come in the last few minutes, and I apologize. We're not going to be able to get to them, but we do have an Ask a Faculty feature on our website. And so either send us an email through the Ask a Faculty feature on the website or contact your admission counselor, shoot me an email and I'll make sure that you get an answer to your questions. And I'm hoping to see a lot of you on campus. We're having Read Admit Days. We have about 8 more scattered throughout the next couple of months. We're going to be in your neighborhood. We're doing Read receptions nationally. And so our counselors are hitting the road. But our goal over the next 6 weeks is to put you in a position to make an informed decision about where you want to be for 4 years. We're not here to sell you. We're here to give you an idea of what it's going to be like to be a Reed student and help you imagine what that senior year version of you is like at Reed versus what it might be like in another place. So you can make a thoughtful decision about your career and your experiences. So, Kris, Kara, Matt, thank you so much. It's nice to talk with you all. And all of you, I know some of you are up really late to come and join us for this. This is our last faculty spotlight until April. And then we move into virtual events where I'll be speaking with Audrey, our campus president. Carnell and I are going to answer some tough questions. And then each department will do a deep dive into their majors. So I want you to join for that.
Milian, I just wanted to say that there were a couple questions that I know I didn't get to, and folks should feel free to reach out to me and email me questions. I'm happy to answer them more that way too. So sorry if I didn't get to it. Just send me an email. You can find me on the Read Biology webpage.
I appreciate that, Kara. Thanks so much.
Yeah,
Thanks, everyone.
likewise.
Oh,
Sorry,
and
likewise
this
for
will be
questions
posted.
about linguistics.
Matt, thanks a lot. And this will be posted online, and so you can come back and watch it if you feel like you missed anything. Thanks to you all. Have a good night. See
Bye,
you all later.
everyone. Thank
Bye.
you.